Chapter 19, The Mists of Oridon. While it had been hard saying goodbye to Mal and letting the four villain kids return to the Isle of the Lost, Ben knew that if anyone could get to the bottom of what was happening back there, she was the one to do it. He was glad she had her friends by her side as well. There was no point in wasting time biting his fingernails and watching the clock. He didn't realize he'd spoken out loud until Cogsworth interrupted his thoughts. "Did you say clock, sire?" his loyal servant asked. While Cogsworth was no longer a grandfather clock, he was still understandably sensitive when he heard anything pertaining to timepieces. "It is close to midnight, should you need the time." The stalwart Englishman was overseeing the footmen as they set down Ben's trunks from the journey in the royal bedroom. "Thank you, I didn't realize how late it was." "You can leave the rest for tomorrow," Ben said, dismissing them. He was incredibly tired, and the extra plush mattress in his large wrought iron four-poster bed was especially inviting after the lumpy one in Camelot. He was happy to be back in his room with the familiar Oridon banners and exercise equipment, the huge yacht model he'd made still sitting on his desk. "If I may," said Cogsworth, pausing at the doorway. He waited for Ben to nod before continuing. "Lumiere mentioned you had encountered a rather purple dragon in the woods. Being that my old friend is prone to flights of fancy, I thought I would ask you myself. Is it true, sire, about the dragon?" "I'm afraid it is," said Ben. "May I ask you that you and the rest of the palace staff please keep this news to yourselves for now? At the right time, I shall alert the general population of the danger." "Of course, sire," said Cogsworth, who had turned gray. "Do you think it is her?" he asked, visibly shivering at the thought. "Unfortunately, I can't think who or what else it could be but Maleficent," said Ben. "But don't worry, my friend will keep Oridon safe." Cogsworth bowed, and when he left the room, Ben noticed that everything had been unpacked and put away in pristine order, even though he told him to wait until tomorrow. Ben had to smile. That Cogsworth, his loyal efficiency was regular as clockwork. Even though he was exhausted, the events of the night meant Ben found it hard to fall asleep. Deciding it was useless to keep tossing and turning, he got up to do some work instead. When he turned on his computer, he found that, as promised, Carlos had sent him the link to the darknet. Ben clicked around till he found the photos Mal had told him about on the anti-heroes thread. He was taken aback to find one of himself with a red X over his face, too. He clucked his tongue and continued to read on, steeling himself for further assault and more invectives. The Anti-Heroes Forum was lit up that night, with many of its members posting their excitement about tonight's meeting. Then Ben saw a new post that caught his eye. The message read, "Looks like 4 former cast-offs have washed ashore on the Isle of the Lost. Prepare Operation Welcome Home." Hang on, 4 former cast-offs? That could only mean his 4 friends, right? Ben checked the timestamp. The message was sent an hour ago, about the same time Mal and the gang would have arrived on the island. He had to warn them that their presence had been noticed by their enemies. Ben sent texts and tried to call, then remembered that the island was cut off from the main servers. If Mal got into trouble, there was no way for him to find out until it was too late. He could send his royal troops after them right now, but since nothing had happened yet, he knew Mal would take it as an insult. Ben slammed down his laptop, frustrated. He would just have to trust that she, Evie, Jay, and Carlos would be able to deal even if the situation got out of hand. He forced himself to stop worrying and focus on the current problem instead. The Purple Dragon of Camelot. Earlier, he had sent emergency emails to his council, alerting them to the danger he'd discovered. Grumpy and the dwarf advised they were up for battle, axes at the ready. Although perhaps the best thing to do would be to destroy Maleficent while she was in her tiny lizard form in her glass dome. Others were more cautious in their response, however. An email had arrived from the three good fairies. Merryweather, the youngest and most capable with modern technology, had sent the reply. Our dearest king, it is with great concern that we receive the distressing news about Camelot's dragon. While it does seem as if none other than our own nemesis Maleficent is behind such mischief, we would like to advise caution in this arena before we jump to conclusions. If the creature is indeed a shape-shifting evil fairy, it is best to obtain proof before we act accordingly. Perhaps it would be possible to retrieve an item linked to the dragon in question, a nail from its claw, a piece of its hide, a lock of its hair. If you are able to recover such an item, it would be prudent to bring it to Neverland right away, the ancestral home of the fairies, so they can ascertain the identity of this dragon. Without proof that it is indeed Maleficent, it seems imprudent to act with violence toward the lizard in the library, who might still be innocent. Your godparents, Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather. He was glad they agreed that Maleficent should not be harmed, as he knew he could never face Mal if she returned on Monday to the news that her mother had been destroyed without a fair trial or even proof that she was the one rampaging through Camelot. The royal technicians had set up several cameras all around Maleficent's prison, and Ben called up the screens. All of them showed a tiny lizard under glass, and so far there was no indication it was anything other than that. He closed the window, showing the security screens with a sigh. As he was typing a grateful reply to the good fairies, there was a knock on his door. Enter, he called. Forgive me, sire, but Archimedes just dropped us off. From the way he was hooting, it seemed rather urgent, said a sleeping Lumiere, handing him a letter that had beak marks around its edges. Ben ripped open the letter, his heart pounding as he imagined that news Merlin had sent from Camelot. Had the dragon scorched the castle, laid waste to the entire kingdom? All well here. Purple dragon spotted off Charmington Cove. I thought you should know. It appears the creature is on the move. Not the greatest news, knowing the dragon was venturing into other areas of Oradon, but at least not the worst news either. Lumiere was standing at attention, waiting orders. It looks like we'll have to pack up again, Ben said, but I'll drive this time. Very good, sire, said Lumiere. Oh, and find Chad Charming. Tell him to be ready to leave with me in the morning. It would be best to have someone who knew the lay of the land. No matter that his and Chad's friendship had cooled slightly since the villain kids had enrolled at Oradon Prep. Ben turned back to his computer and reread the good fairy's words. If the purple dragon was in Charmington, he would make sure to bring a piece of it to Neverland, so they could solve the mystery of the creature's identity once and for all.